Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome to another exciting meeting here at CPEchoes. We do have a very full meeting agenda planned for you today, so I'm going to be brief. Before I introduce to you our Toastmaster, I just want to make a quick announcement that we are going to be having a board meeting immediately following our regular club meeting for the board members. We're going to begin exactly at 1:05 today, and we're going to try to keep that very short. So, but welcome everyone. We're looking forward to the area contest tomorrow evening at Park Ridge Community Church, and our very own Brad Sabranke is going to be competing as an evaluator. And Pendra is not here, but he will.
He's working on a speech all day today.
Yeah, he is. He's not here because he's going to be giving his hilarious speech as well. So you are all, please come out and support.
We have a special Toastmaster.
We have. Oh yeah, we do.
Our very own.
I will be Toastmaster the extravaganza, so I'm looking forward to that as well. So hopefully I don't mess up the names of anyone in our very own club on the big stage. So it's going to be fun.
The big stage.
Without further ado, our Toastmaster of the day, Mr. Jorge Restrepo.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Do we have any guests today? No, we don't. I don't see any guests today. So we have a meeting today. I have the role of Toastmaster for the first time, and I found out how many activities I needed to coordinate. Last night at 11 o'clock at night. So having said that, the meeting theme is spring is in the air, yet I am feeling the heat of deep summer in this role. Having said that, let me introduce you, our team today. The general evaluator is our esteemed Mr. Beaumont.
Hey, long time no see, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you so much. Hey, I brought my own agenda.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I would like to introduce our evaluation team members today. First, our grammarian will be Miss Tanya. Would you like to stand up and introduce your role for us today?
Yes, I am the grammarian for today. Learning experience. I just looked down and saw that the word of the day is audacious. But
oh wait, I thought we were doing ameliorate.
Right, yeah. I made that one up on the spot because Jorge told me we need a word of the day, and I was like, okay, I got this.
Good.
So okay, I guess I'll change it to ameliorate. To make better or to improve. We are all here to ameliorate our public speaking skills. I will be looking for incorrect grammar, the word of the day, how many times it's used, and creative use of language.
All right.
Thank you.
And our counter of the day will be, thank you, Miss Kate Annenson. We made that very seamless. As I was searching the room for eye contact.
Hi, I will be your counter for the day, so I'll be counting your ums, ahs, so's, you knows, and other filler words. I will tally them up, hopefully the correct number, and I'll give my report at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And helping us to ameliorate our timing abilities will be our timer of the day, Mr. Naga.
Hey guys, this is my first time, so I'm going to evaluate your timing, and we have 3 speakers today, and the first speaker has chosen 5 to 7 minutes, 10 to 15, the second speaker is 10 to 15 minutes, and the third speaker 6 to 8 minutes. So the green will go at the minimum at 5 for the first speaker, and the next one would be 10, and the next one would be at 6. As well, the red would be accordingly plus 2 minutes. And we have table topics, and the minimum time to qualify is 1 to 2 minutes, and anything less than 1 minute would be disqualified, and anything above 2 minutes is disqualified. At the end, I'll be giving you all the timing.
Great, thank you.
Oh, I forgot the evaluator, sorry.
My speech is 4 to 6
We
minutes.
don't currently do, in order for time, we did bump table topics all together for today.
Okay.
So we may be, depending on our speaking times, who was our table topics master? Kate?
Yeah.
Do you have questions prepared? Okay, so we're running good, so we'll see how it goes. Okay.
Always enter right to the board.
And each speaker will be evaluated with the exception of Linda as well. I will give a full report at the end, and I'm going to turn the meeting back to Mr. Jorge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a few changes in our agenda. That's part of the heat that I To begin with, the word of the day is not audacious, it's ameliorate.
Yay.
And the meeting theme on your sheets should be spring is in the air. The changes in timing as well. Speaker number 1, which is going to be Mr. Sherrill today, well dressed. He is going to be talking for 4 to 6 minutes. 4, 5, 6. And we have speaker number 3 as well, Randy Garber, later. He is going to be speaking between 3 and 5 minutes with a Q&A session of 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so write it down. Having said this, I am pleased to introduce Mr. Trey Sherrill. He is doing the Pathways Icebreaker,
Whoa.
and so it's going to be a serious presentation today.
So Toastmasters has started Pathways. Pathways is a new program, and as it was being introduced and rolled out, I was getting excited about it. I really wanted to engage with it, and I think it was November, they sent out an email and said who would like to be a Pathways guide, and I raised my hand, and they wouldn't let me in. They said, we'd like to have a letter of reference from 2 people you know. And so
It's a problem.
So I used 2 people in this club. I used Steve and I used Pat. And with $20, I got in. $20 in, what I'm trying to say. And Pathways is changing everything, and what I would like you to do is to evaluate me on a Pathways evaluation form, an icebreaker evaluation form. This is the new deal. Whoops. One of the things that Pathways has done is they have enhanced the evaluation process. And clearly we used to use this funky little form, and this is actually better than one of the forms that was used in another club I'm in. The form that they used was this big. It was like, you know, if anybody did a decent evaluation, you couldn't read the dumb thing. So it's clearly an upgrade. And I will just say that I have really enjoyed my time with learning Pathways and engaging with the Toastmaster organization. The Toastmaster organization is a really quality group. I think they've got some funky things that they do, but it's a really quality group. I actually have a Pathways mother. I have Pathways, somebody who kind of goes before me and takes care of me and smooths the path out. And that is Pat, who is chuckling over there. I got an email from Pat, and multiple times over the last several months, and she said, Trey, have you done this? Trey, have you read this email? Trey, did you log in and do that? And it really has been a treat, because I'm the kind of guy who likes a den mother. I like a woman who's going to help me get there and get it all covered. One of the things I learned as I was doing my Pathways training is what a good Toastmaster looks like. A good Toastmaster wears a jacket. He doesn't just come in a cheesy pair of jeans. He wears a pair of nice slacks. He wears a nice pair of shoes. And you know, you're a little cooler when you've got a Pathways pin. It gives everybody this feeling that this guy's a little cooler than everybody else. And when you've got two, you're even better. I got this just as this club was getting name tags for everybody who had a CC, and I just chuckled because this says Trace Sherrill, Pathways Guide, District Number 2. So I want to say that I'm really excited for the Pathways program. It is a huge enhancement to the training program that Toastmasters has been doing. The richness of the experience, of the online experience, compared to the manuals that we have had in the past, unbelievable. There are times when it does feel like you're sitting in PDF City with a PDF for this and a PDF for that and a PDF for everything, but it's online. I was not one of the more fortunate Pathways guides. The Pathways guides who were really fortunate had an ambassador with them, so we would go out to clubs that we were introducing, and you'd go with the Pathways guide and you'd go with an ambassador. Both of you would go out and present Pathways to the clubs that I'm responsible for, but they said, no ambassador for you, Trey. You're all by yourself. You're going to do it by yourself. And it was tough, but dressed like this, how could I lose? They have done a number of webinars to train the Pathways Guide and help us. And it's kind of funny. It's the Toastmaster way. They answer every question by giving the answer 3 different ways. And there are some times where it's like, you know, sugar, I got the answer the first time. You didn't have to say it the other 2. I just want to say that it has been really enjoyable for me, and my Pathways Guide experience is not over by any means. Our first job was to do training. Our second job was to go and do club visits and introduce Pathways to clubs. And Pat introduced Pathways to this club, I guess in 2 months ago-ish, something like that. I have been doing it over the last month and a half, 2 months. And now I spend 16 weeks doing online meetings with each of the VPEs of the clubs that I'm responsible for. And I'm looking forward to it. They're a great bunch of people. Every club that I went to was delightful. And I gotta say, it's been a nice training experience for me because you get to speak longer than 5 to 7 minutes. I just want to say Toastmasters is a quality organization and Pathways is a huge upgrade for the Toastmaster training program. Thank you.
May we have 1 minute?
Thank you. Well, what is this?
You just get to?
I think it's a handout from Linda.
It is,
Okay,
it is.
okay.
Time?
5 more seconds. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. So I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Linda Whittlesey.
Yeah.
She will be talking about parliamentary procedures today. It's a 10 to 15 minute time,
Thrilling time.
thrilling time.
Oh.
She is going to again embellish our thoughts today with her speech. So welcome Linda Whittlesey.
Thank you so much. Actually, the reason I'm giving this speech is that it's a setup for the speech to follow, which is Randy Barber speaking under fire. So we're going to learn the decent way to handle situations that you come up with. How many of you were here for my first installment of this?
Well, I
great.
think, but I'm not sure what the first was.
Yeah. I can't believe you wouldn't have remembered that. So unforgivable. Basically, we talked about the fact that parliamentary procedure in general and Robert's Rules of Order in particular, because they're what we use and it's the most widely used system of parliamentary procedure in the world, was made up in advance so that life in general did not become like Facebook. We get together to decide issues, and there are issues to decide in almost every organization. There will be differences of opinion. And we need to have an orderly way of getting the conversation going, of getting the things that we want to talk about going, and we really need to do that rather than everyone raising their hands at once or standing up and screaming and yelling across the room, and it looks like a presidential debate. That is not the rules of order that we're going to go into because we are civilized. So last time we discussed that that everybody gets a vote, no one gets 2 votes, and no one can vote twice. The rules are majority does rule, but the minority is protected and heard. And I think that's such a very good rule. So when we want something to be done in using Robert Rules of Order is that someone makes a motion. And I would just like to ask our esteemed member, den mother, Pat Sultan, to make the same motion she made last time. I got voted down last time, but it's okay. We're gonna revive it for our purposes today. So Pat, do you remember what you were very passionate about it, and I'm sure you still remember.
I move that Canyon Park Echoes meet on Fridays at noon in the same location, starting next week.
You think, and someone seconded it. Would someone like to second it again?
I second that.
Kate will second that. And now we're open for debate. Now, what we're gonna look at today, last time it was just doing a motion, just all that it took to get a motion, and to get it seconded, and to get it discussed, and to get it voted on. But now, we get to the meat of stuff. We're talking subsidiary motions, and those are really exciting. If you will notice, you have the chart of motions with everything blacked out except what we're going to discuss today, which is the first of the subsidiary motions. We will give you all these other tables later. So today we're going to discuss the 7 subsidiary motions and what they mean, and we are discussing them in the order of importance. So if you will look at the chart that we have here, at the bottom we have the main motion. And then we're moving up in importance to the rest of them. So postponing indefinitely is the first subsidiary motion, then amend, then refer to committee. We're going to go through them this way. So the order of importance is kind of in inverse where we're going to talk about them. We'll get it. It'll be fun. Postpone indefinitely is the most seldom of all the motions, subsidiary motions that are ever used. And that is when someone suggests something that the most of the members just would not like to have voted on. And we really wouldn't want, for many reasons, it might be illegal, it might just give us really bad publicity, or it might be just a zany, crazy idea. And so if that comes up, this motion permits the Assembly to avoid a direct vote on a main motion and in effect to defeat the motion indirectly. Because all we're saying is we are going to shelve this until further notice. And in all good parliamentary procedure things, we hope until further notice never arises. Until further notice would be like when the cooler heads come forward and say, we can't be discussing that. But right now, we would use that if someone had a crazy motion. Let's just think of a crazy motion to Pat's motion. I would maybe, here, I'm going to suggest one, because I don't want to have to do so hard. What if I said, yes, I think we should, yes, I would agree that we should, she's got the motion on the table to move us to Friday. I say, yes, I would agree to that, but I would like to do it so that only half the members can come. Because I don't like half the people in this room. And I would just rather we didn't tell them, and then we could just meet and have that. And if someone might actually, that would be a motion that like nobody would really want to go forward with. But if you notice I could make a motion, an amendment to that, which does need a second. And if somebody else was crazy like me and wanted that, then it would have to be open for discussion, if I could get a second person to do that. So then someone that has much cooler heads, like Randy, might stand up and say, I move to postpone immediately this discussion. And at that point, if he did that and someone seconded it, it would be debatable. No, we would not, no, excuse me, we would not make it debatable. It would not make it debatable, and would require a majority vote. So that's what we would do. If someone says something really crazy, that's how you would handle it. If it got a second amendment to if it was an amendment to the motion, somebody said that it would be crazy, we would just with that, and hopefully the majority would say, yes, we agree, we'll leave it on the table definitely, and that is done with it for the time being. So that's all we're going to discuss that one today. Then there is just the plain amendment. So let's say that we have Pat's motion that we move the meeting to Friday. What if someone from the Daisy Foundation wanted to put a little addition, maybe we're going to change, maybe change something about that? So you would say, yes, I think we should do that, but I want to make I want to have a subsidiary motion. Kate, what might you want to suggest to make it easier for the Daisy crowd if we move this to Friday?
We move it to Friday, but the Daisy folks can roll in 5 minutes late if they want, because we have so much work to do.
Okay.
So we're allowed to come in later.
Okay, good.
It's fine.
Okay, good. So that's a main amendment to, because the other one was screwball, we got rid of that. So the main amendment is, yes, let's talk about moving it till Friday, but the Daisy, all 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, however many the people are in this club that are going to Daisy, that are the Daisy Foundation, will be able to come in as they please because of their heavy work schedule. Okay, great. Everybody got the idea for saying no remark? Okay, the third amendment would be the kind where we would refer it to committee. We refer an amendment to the committee when we discover that there may be some information here that we just don't have. Maybe we don't have enough information. What might be one of those things? Steve?
If the room's available.
There you go. Let's say that we're the people next, was Pat, as well, she said she checked with the people next door, she didn't really do it. And so that, right, we don't, why would we debate this unless we could figure out if it was something that we could even have, right? If it's unworkable, why would we even want to go ahead and vote on it? So Steve would just say, I move that.
We refer this to the committee and
Okay, who's going to be our committee, Steve?
the Kaiser staff.
No.
Board. Oh,
In this group, who's our committee?
Our CPE board.
Okay, the board, great.
Yeah.
So you would move, I move that we put this to put this to a committee. We will not discuss this anymore today, but the committee will come, the committee will get together and they will check with the Kaiser Permanente folks and see if that would be an okay thing. And that would be the way we would handle that. And if we look at, so I'm going to go back here for one, just a second here. We're going to look at our little chart here. So let's look at the refer to committee chart. That's number 10. Okay, that is a subsidiary motion. It requires a second. It is debatable and requires a majority to vote on it. So that we would all be voting on that particular thing. So let's put that into play right now. Let's have Steve say, I move that we refer to committee to see if it's even possible to do that, right? So somebody want to second it?
I seconded.
Okay, and so then I would say, so it's been moved and seconded that rather than discuss this right now, we appoint the officers of Canyon Park Echoes to form a committee, and they will come back and meet with us when?
After the next meeting of the board.
Okay,
So that after the third Wednesday of next month.
okay, so after we meet, we'll do that. That would be how that would be handled.
So it would essentially be at the business meeting, the next business meeting.
Right. Or you could say, we're gonna get together for tacos, tonight at my house or something, and something like that, but it could be, that would
I
make
like
sense.
tacos.
Yeah, like tacos,
Big
mac and cheese,
tacos.
mac and cheese tacos, we're gonna have mac and cheese. Okay, so we're gonna, so then we don't discuss that anymore today. So that amendment is off the table, Pat's motion to move to Friday is totally off the table, until we hear back from the board if that is even, yes, sir.
Don't we need to have a majority vote on it, though? Do we have to vote?
We do, so yes, so, thank you. So then we would say, all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, but you are the minority, so therefore it passes. Signy die. Okay, there we go. All right. Next, we're going to postpone to a certain time. That is similar to, it's similar to the refer to a committee, but it's different because the assembly remains full control of the pending motion or motions. So rather than sending it off to a committee who will get back to us at some point, instead, we will have control of it, and we will say, we will all study it for ourselves, and we'll discuss it at the next board meeting. And if it was seconded, and if it were approved, then at that point, we would then discuss it at the next board meeting, or whenever we had decided to do that. Limit or extend limits of debate. This is a very handy one to have when a debate seems to be going on forever. We're debating, and maybe it's getting to be 1 o'clock and it's time for us to adjourn. So some cool head might come up and say, I move that we have only 5 more minutes of debate. And if that were seconded, so let's look at that one to postpone. Yes, it would be seconded, and it would be debatable. We could debate if we needed to do that. But then if the majority voted, then we would actually be breaking off the discussion and would continue it at the next meeting. Ms. Julie? Yes, you are right. I'm glad you caught that, and I wanted you to catch that. Because any vote, any motion which requires us to give up some of our rights takes 2/3 majority. Thank you for that. That is why. Because if we're going to give up our rights to discuss this for 5 more hours, we are definitely going to want that. So that's why we would do that. Yes, so thank you. That was very good. Anytime we're giving up our rights to do anything. Okay. Previous question. This is what it does is it closes the debate. It closes the debate right there. And it has to be recognized by the chair. It requires a second. It's not debatable and does again require a 2/3 vote because we're going to give that right up to that right now. 7 is the one that is like the coolest. It's called lay on the table. What's that mean? It is, what it does is it is for one purpose only. Say that Betty, who's the facilities manager at this organization, comes in and she says, I need to talk with you right away. So someone would say, Madam Chairman, I move that we lay this on the table for the purpose of having this woman come in because she doesn't have much time and she has something to say. We would stop the debate, she would come in and speak, and when she was done, we would continue the debate. So those are the 7 subsidiary motions. And that is all I'm going to discuss today, unless there are a few questions. We will be getting into other things later. Any questions? Miss Julie,
What's the column? It says interrupt speaker.
what does it say? When is it available? When is it applicable?
It's not available very often.
That's right.
So you can't interrupt the speaker.
Not in any of these motions we have.
Okay.
Exactly right. There will be some at a later, that's the advanced class, but no. No one can interrupt a speaker when speaking because we're not Facebook. Yes.
With regard to an amendment, if I made a motion, do I have to agree to that amendment?
No. No? Well, you put it out there, but When you think about it, this is all really logical. Yes, but no, they can do any of your amendment you want. And your motion, excuse me, they can make any amendment to your motion they want. And your motion will not be voted upon until all those amendments are taken care of.
Can I rescind my motion?
I don't know, that's probably for the next week. Presentation today. A source that I won, and I'm sure it was illuminating to all of you. But you can never interrupt the speaker. That's the point, never interrupt the speaker.
Thank you, Linda.
Number 22.
May we have 1 minute for evaluations?
Why, that's one way to do it. We have to hold it down. It's the red button. It's the red button. You don't hold the red button down. It does take, it takes. Goes on the table for right now.
Huh?
It just goes on the table for right now.
Okay.
Thank you. Now we're going to feel the words of Mr. Randy Barber, who is going to be talking about speaking under fire. It's the Public Relations #4 assignment, and it's going to be 3 to 5 minutes, followed by a Q&A session of 2 to 3 minutes. Welcome, Randy Barber. I see it part, yes.
You need to read that. It's important to the audience.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get it here. Apologize.
That's critical.
The local school board is considering backing Initiative 1621, which would allow non-students to carry concealed pistols. This is an opportunity for community input to be provided on the topic before the board votes. Let me welcome Randy Barber.
Under fire. I hope those amendment things help you out.
The board began discussion last night as to whether or not to back and endorse Initiative 1621, an initiative that would amend the revised Code of Washington to allow non-students to carry concealed pistols. We understand this is a very sensitive and emotional subject. In the board's mind, this is an interest or subject of student safety and student security, not one of gun rights. According to FBI statistics from 2017, you stand a higher chance of getting struck by lightning than to die in a mass shooting. Also, according to those statistics, by more than a 2-to-1 margin, mass shootings occur at commercial locations over educational locations. The district is very interested in the safety and security of your students. And it is said that it takes no more for evil to triumph than for good men to do nothing. We believe in being proactive on the side of taking the steps and measures potentially available to us in order to protect your children. Should this board motion pass, and should the initiative pass, be assured the district will establish very strict guidelines as to who can and who cannot be within this new program that would be developed for concealed carry. I can state categorically that it wouldn't be open to anyone, that we would do extensive checks and extensive research as to who would apply for this program. One of the things that we discussed last night was whether or not there would be potential for additional psychological evaluation of anyone who would be applying for this program. We understand that may violate their constitutional rights, but that's something we would have to check. And if it turned out that it did actually violate their rights, one of the things that we discussed last night was whether or not anyone who would desire to be in the program would submit to a voluntary evaluation. Now there are many, many arguments on the debate, including size of magazines, whether they're semi-automatic weapons. Doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference. We believe that if a perpetrator came in with a revolver and shot one student, that's one student too many. It's not an issue of gun rights, it's an issue of student safety and student security, which is why the motion, or why the issue even came up in the first place. And with that, I will take a few of your questions.
I agree that it's important to ameliorate the security of our students. Is this something that would be mandatory? That is, if nobody volunteered to do it, someone would be required?
No. If there were instances, for instance, in elementaries and middle schools, where resource officers are typically not on site, in general we have resource officers at our high schools most of the time. If no one stepped up and volunteered to be part of the program, there would not be a requirement for that, for anyone in that facility to be within the program.
I just like to get some information here. So say two non-students get rights to carry a concealed weapon. If, as you say, none of us want one person to come in and shoot a child. I mean, that would be one too many. But what good is it going to do the child in room A if the person with the concealed permit is in room 12? We're still going to have one student shot, since it's not going to be in every classroom necessarily. So I'm wondering what the logic is of the board that they.
Well, there's no guarantee that someone who is armed would be close to a perpetrator. If you look at statistics, up until yesterday in Maryland, school shootings typically had one thing in common. The only person armed in the building was the shooter. We believe, which is why the debate started, that we potentially can head off a perpetrator coming into a facility if they know there is a possibility, not a guarantee, but a possibility that at least one person in that facility is also armed.
So it would be a deterrence.
It's a deterrence.
Well, may I just, I don't think we're going to have
You can amend your question.
But what I was going to say, I thought that in the Parkland shooting, there was a resource officer with a gun, and he was standing outside and stayed there during the whole shooting.
He was not in the building.
He was on the building.
The resource officer yesterday was in the building. The resource officer in Parkland was not in the building.
Oh, thank you.
Has anyone asked the teachers how they feel about this, or the school staff?
No, this is why we're beginning the discussion today. It first came up in the board dialogue last night, and we're just beginning the dialogue now.
Are there any schools that do have this in place now?
Not in the state of Washington, because it's against the revised code of Washington for any person to be on site during school activities with a firearm. And districts can provide and establish stricter guidelines that go above and beyond what the RCW requires when it comes to firearms. For instance, there are neighboring districts that do not allow firearms on their facilities at any time during the day. The RCW says that while school activities are going on, no person may be on site with a firearm. Yes, sir.
So carrying a firearm at a school is a state issue. And would I be correct in saying that in Florida, with this resource officer or whatever he was, or in Maryland, their states have the ability for a non-student to carry a weapon?
I'm not aware of what the laws of Florida or of Maryland were. I can only comment on what the laws of Washington are.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your position at school here again? I didn't quite catch that.
My position,
At the
my
school.
position is that we should
No,
endorse
I
this
mean, what do
initiative.
you do?
Who are you?
principal?
I am a public spokesman for the school board.
Okay, would you yourself be willing to go in and be on
Yes.
site? Okay, you would.
I
Okay.
would.
May I ask what kind of gun you have?
I do not own a gun at this point,
Why?
but I would be willing to.
You're gonna learn to shoot?
I would be willing to be trained
Okay,
and do that.
have you passed a psychological exam?
I would voluntarily submit to
Just out of curiosity, since a lot of these school shootings are done by students, would there be any follow-up psychological help for those folks who are on campus and are in a position where they need to gun down a child?
Oh, God.
Will they receive psychological assistance after that fact?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because that's pretty life-changing.
Yes. One more question.
I would assume that all persons that are qualified to carry these firearms would be expertly trained, obviously, to a certain degree, to, if that, godforsaken act needed to occur, that they would be trained to use non-lethal force by all means, and that they would have, obviously, like I said, more extensive training than the average carry permit holder.
That would be our intent. We would
Okay.
first look for people who would volunteer who had some sort of military or other training with a firearm above and beyond what a typical gun safety course would be.
Because you don't even need to pass a gun safety course to obtain a
That's
CPL in
correct.
Washington.
That's why the policies that we would look for the administration to adopt would be very strict as it relates to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ratty. May we have 1 minute for evaluations, please? Thank you. Now we're going to have the evaluation team, so let's welcome Steve Beaumont again.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Toastmaster, good to be back up here. It is now time for the evaluation portion of our meeting, where we will ameliorate our public speaking skills, to use the word of the day in its exact quotation. Our first evaluator, who will be evaluating Mr. Trey Sherrill's speech, will be Julie Morton. We are looking forward to hearing from your evaluation.
Thank you ever so. First, I'd like to invite you all to take a collective, very deep breath. Let it out and let off all of the ick that's all over us from the subject that Randy brought up. I mean, who needs drama class with Toastmasters? This was
I feel no ick.
I feel feel a lot of ick. I'm too empathic. I'm ameliorating my ick by making a joke. Now, hello everybody, Toastmasters, especially Trey. If everyone who gave their first icebreaker speech spoke as wonderfully as you, we would not need Toastmasters at all. Luckily, we all know this was not your real icebreaker speech, otherwise it would set the bar really, really high. Purpose of this project is for the member to introduce himself or herself to the club and learn basic structure of a public speech. Okay. You did a great job. Everything that you do is always very good. You excelled at many things. I will go to the new evaluation criteria that Trey provided us, which was wonderful to do, giving us this handout. I love that there are five scales instead of 3 scales, because I always felt bad, this is again my own issue, I always felt bad giving a 2 when I felt I couldn't give a total 3, so I'd write stuff in there like 2.5, 2.75. Now I could go to the 4 and still feel like, yeah. So I give you mostly 4s. Vocal variety though, 4 to 5. You not only excel at using tone, speed, and volume as tools, I would say you use them pretty darn near perfection. Eye contact. You've got fantastic eye contact. You move around, you greet everybody, invite everyone in. Your gestures. Everyone knows you've got the gestures. And mostly, I would say they are, yes, mostly I would say they're fantastic to enhance the speech. I did give you a 4 instead of a 5 because sometimes I think you actually use your hands more than is necessary or not intentionally enough. For example, you use a lot of jazz hands, which always makes me laugh. Jazz hands.
That's his Italian heritage.
Yes. Cherolini, he's Italian. So, I just did the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is that sometimes you start sentences with so. As a matter of fact, you started your speech with so. So without saying so, which I just said so, stop saying so at the beginning of sentences, please. I want to say thank you for your service to our club in taking on this Pathways role. We really appreciate it, and we're all benefiting from it, and lots of members are benefiting from it. Thank you for endorsing Pathways. That helps us reduce our level, and we just really appreciate that number of hours that you're putting in. It was a great speech, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. And our next evaluator to evaluate Randy's speech, will be our evaluator contestant for tomorrow evening's area contest.
What?
Isn't Linda going?
No,
I'm sorry? Well, Linda doesn't go? Oh, okay.
my speech is not
Okay.
evaluated.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying I was evaluating.
No.
Uh-oh.
To evaluate Linda's speech.
Oh,
I would walk
There's
out the
a real
room if
change
you
in
did
the
that.
program.
I would just walk out the room and never come back.
So I'm not losing it. To evaluate Brandy's speech will be Brad. Brad's a Brad.
Make me second guess myself.
Make me second guess myself. Randy Barber, that was an audacious job. You really ameliorated.
You got them both.
Woo! Ba-bang bang.
I want to give you what I can recall as the BLT method. I want to talk to you about the best things that I saw, some things I'd like to see, something I'd like to see, and then a takeaway, which actually very similarly mimics the new evaluation form for the Pathways. Some of the things that I like so much about your speech. you were so calm and very even-paced on this very difficult subject. You didn't come up here and act all tense because it's a very tense subject. You were so calm, and so I think you brought a calmness to the audience because of how calm and even-paced you were. And you did that the entire time, even when you were being asked questions. It's a lesson that I can learn. One of the other things that I liked very much was your statistics you gave. I think that helped calm us somewhat to realize that, what are some real facts here? You talk about lightning, the chance of being struck by lightning is more than anybody being involved in one of these situations. Commercial locations, 2 to 1. And then you also talked about there's one thing in common with all school shootings that have happened up until yesterday is that there was only one person who had a gun there. And so those are some great statistics that speak to us. Another thing that I like that you did a lot, or 2 times, was you re-emphasized what you were talking about. You talked about student safety and security, not gun rights. Because everybody can get fired up about gun rights. But you brought us back to this is about student safety and security, which is the important factor. The 4th thing that I thought was the best thing you did was that you had a great response to the questions that were asked of you. You didn't get riled up at all. You answered them very calmly. You did an incredible job answering those questions. The only thing that I could come up that I would like to see comes from one of the questions. The question was, what is your role? I think if you would have stated what your role was, and maybe you did, I just don't recall it, but and another person didn't recall it, I think that would give you authority as you open up your speech. As far as the T for takeaway, what can we do? This puts a challenge in each one of our hearts about what do we. We all have a responsibility to think about this, to not act emotionally, but to act sensibly about how can we bring resolution to some of these a very difficult situation, which has become much too common. So I thank you for the opportunity to evaluate, and thank you for listening to my speech.
Great job. Thank you. And for our timers report, Naga, did everyone qualify or stay within their allotted time?
Yeah, everyone did stay. Trey was like 6 minutes and 24 seconds. Linda was 14 minutes and 5 seconds. Randy was 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Coming to the evaluation, Julie was 3 minutes and 35 seconds. Brad was 2 minutes and 56 seconds. So Brad made it. Yes.
Thank you, Naga. Appreciate it. If you haven't already, please vote for your best speaker and evaluator for today's meeting. And for our counters report, Kate, please.
So today was a day of ahs and uhs. Jorge, you had a good handful. Linda, a few uhs in there. Additionally, you repeat words as filler instead of saying which I just say as I just did there. Naga, you had a handful of ahs and uhs as well while you were giving your initial statement there. So just watch those as fillers. A handful of so's for everybody, but some of them were legitimate, and I always have trouble telling the difference when it comes to this because sometimes it flows well. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. And Tanya, for our grammarians report, please.
Right. So, the use of the word for the day. The use of the word for the day. Mr. President used it twice. The third evaluator, which is my neighbor, used it once. Miss Pat used it once. For the speakers, they had a couple creative use of language. Trey said funky things, PDF City. Miss Linda said make sure issues don't become like Facebook. And Julie said let all the ick out of us.
Thank you. All in all, a spectacular meeting. I love that we were able to get all of this in on time and actually be a little bit ahead of schedule. I do have a couple comments. Wonderful evaluations by everyone. Kate, you managed to get 3 of your own ahs and 1 so in there during your own on top of. All right, Jorge, you're next. No. Sit back down. Great job. It's first time Toastmastering. Fantastic. Great job timing the meeting. Your professionalism was right on. The speaker intros are important. Make sure that you get those, that you're prepared with those beforehand so that you can introduce them properly. And the agenda, thank you for reaching out to me this morning and getting that squared away. Just a few little things like the word of the day and the meeting theme. But other than that, fantastic job. Julie, great evaluation. As always, you're very so thorough. At first, we weren't sure if you were evaluating Randy or Trey. but you're always so thorough. And I loved how you said, "Stop saying so" at the beginning of your sentence. Because he's going to remember that now.
Oh, yeah.
And then
You think?
Brad, this was by far your best evaluation yet. You're obviously ready for tomorrow night. You used not only the word of the day, but you used the old word of the day that was on the agenda. So you get double credit for that. Energetic, funny. You were naturally speaking. Your content always, you show us that you remember and you pay attention to when we're talking, because you always bring up specific things about the speeches. That's going to get you points in the contest. I love your side-by-side, and you spoke with a purpose up here. Most importantly, you slowed down. And that was all the difference in the world for you. Great meeting, everyone. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Jorge.
In order to wrap up our meeting today, we have, and before we start that, we have an announcement. So.
Thank you.
So.
I don't mean to beat this horse to death. I just want to make sure you're all aware of the opportunity, which is an advanced club that's going to be held in Bothell or Mill Creek. We're looking more and more like Bothell every day. It's going, the next organizational meeting, or actually we're past organizational, we're actually having speeches, we're having evaluators, we're having table topics, will be the fourth Saturday of April. I've already have checks and applications. We need 20 to make this thing a go. I think we can do it because we need it and it's fun. And you'll see other people from other clubs and it'll be wonderful, yes.
How much does it cost?
That's a good question. The cost is $51.25.
For every 6 months?
No,
Okay.
the initial is $45
Uh-huh.
because you're joining another club.
Okay.
The fee for having a charter is $125. Divide that by 20 people, and you got, comes up with $51.25. After the first 6 months, there'll probably be a club fee. I don't know what that's going to be, because that's up to the club. We don't have a name yet. You could be the person to provide a name.
Okay.
I was thinking ABC Advanced Bothell Club, if it ends up in Mill Creek, never mind.
Well, our
Next.
thing says Mill Creek and we're in Bothell.
Well, no, it doesn't.
Banner.
It's been fixed. It's been fixed. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh.
Changing subjects. Looking for board members for next year. Have a few people I've spoken to, volunteers and so on. I need more, I want more. Not every position has had a volunteer or a person who's come forward that I've approached and has agreed. So come on forward. If we have 2 people who are interested in the same position, we'll have a runoff. That's okay too. Thank you very much.
Very good. I'm going to have to take Mr. Sherrill's suggestion to ameliorate my he doesn't like the Jeeves.
No, I like them plenty.
Oh, that was fun.
Very good. So we're going to do the awards. So for speaker, let's do a drum roll. The speaker of the day is